Israel has warned the United States that Iran hatched a plot to assassinate President Trump. KT McFarland joins me now. KT, they're huge posters now. We're not even going to show them, but they're huge posters all over Tehran calling for Trump's death, one offering a reward for his killing. How should we respond to this? This is really direct now, like it never has been before.
You know, I've worked for 4 presidents, and they've always, assassination attempts come with the job. I even worked for Reagan when he almost died from an assassination attempt. But President Trump he's really fatalistic about it, and he's not fazed by it. And even when he was in Ankara, Turkey, he said, look, it comes with the job. They've tried. I'm the #1 target of any assassin in the world. And so he's in a very unique position. Not only is it the Trump derangement syndrome American potential assassins, but it's now coming from Iran, from the country of Iran. I just think, what do you do about it? You make sure that the government of Iran going forward, whatever the deal is, whenever the deal is, can police its own. And you also make sure that the Secret Service is just as good as it can be, and you continue to have a strong relationship with Israeli intelligence, because they're the best in the world.
God bless them. I mean, if it had, for all those people who dump on Israel, of course, a lot of them don't care about Donald Trump, but the fact is that it was that Israeli intelligence, apparently, that prevented this attack or prevented the execution of it. And that's really a good ally when they can help prevent an assassination. Meanwhile, you do have, despite all this, you have the idea of the talks continuing, and there does seem to be a tension now in the White House between VP Vance, who we know is pushing for more negotiations, and Secretary of State Rubio, who says enough is enough, which is what Donald Trump seemed to be saying in the middle of the week, in the beginning of the week. Is Trump using this as kind of a good cop, bad cop negotiating tool?
Yeah, I mean, Trump likes to listen to all people, but Trump is the only guy. He's a decider-in-chief. He makes the decisions. And even if nobody recommends a decision, he'll take it. What I thought was really interesting, David, is what Lauren was just saying about the price of oil. Watch how the negotiations have affected the price of oil. So before the war, it was about $70 a barrel. When the war starts, it goes up to about $120 a barrel. And that was putting a lot of pressure on the world economy, on gasoline prices in the United States, et cetera. Then you have this ceasefire, and price of oil goes way back down to about 70. And now where are we? What did Lauren just say? $76 a barrel today?
No. $72 a barrel.
Okay, $72 a barrel, 76 yesterday. So despite the fact that we're back at war, and despite the fact that President Trump has said we're going to hit them hard, et cetera, and we are hitting them hard, oil is not the leverage and the blackmail that Iran had before.
Right.
Why is that? Because in the period of the ceasefire, a number of countries have started buying American, right? They've been buying oil from Alaska, from the Gulf of America, and American crude oil exports have gone up 30% just since the war began. The other thing is that the Middle East allies, the Saudis, UAE especially, Iraq, they're building pipelines and fast-tracking those pipelines.
Right.
So with every day, Iran's ability to blackmail the world with the Strait of Hormuz goes down.
KT, you worked with the great Secretary of State Henry Kissinger. Kissinger always was hoping, I think one of his dreams was that eventually there would be some kind of deal between Israel and the Arab countries that would kind of isolate Iran, put Iran in a pocket. It seems that Donald Trump, through the Abraham Accords, has worked this out, or at least that we have the basis for all of that working out. And these tensions now with Iran are the final proof of that, because you see the UAE leaving OPEC, et cetera. It seems like things are working in the direction that even Kissinger wanted to go for.
It's in the fullness of time, it's taken a long time.
It has.
But if you had said that you would have a situation where the United States and Israel and the Gulf Arab countries were working together, fighting together, not just trading, but fighting together against Iran, nobody would have believed you.
Right.
And yet that's the new Middle East. I think that the whole Iran war, as important as it is and important as Iran's nuclear weapons and getting rid of them was, the end result of this is a complete change of the chessboard
Yeah,
in the Middle
yeah.
East.
No, this
we
is-
now have a lot of really close friends and allies, and that's the big takeaway.
These are historic times, really historic times. Things that have been happening for 40, 50 years are beginning to change now. Great to see you, KT. Thank you so much for coming in. Really appreciate it.